Hello and welcome to the show. I'm so glad that you could join us today. Listen, we've got a great show planned for you. I always talk about the power of now, but of course, this month, all year is the power of now, okay? But this month, we're celebrating Fearless Fathers. We've been talking to fathers all over about being a father and how important that is to them. And so today's guest, we're going to be talking, of course, with our poetic angel. She's going to come on with a poem, and then we're going to talk to her about her father. And then, of course, our next guest is going to be Alvin King. So I just want you to sit back, relax, and enjoy because it's coming up next.
The Curry Insurance Agency has served the community for over 30 years with hundreds of trained representatives to assist you in selecting health plans. Curry Insurance Agency is the largest marketing insurance group in the state of South Carolina for Medicare Advantage and represents all major health carriers. Curry's motto is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Call the Curry Agency today at 803-536-0889. The Cecil Williams South Carolina Civil Rights Museum is the Palmetto State's first and only museum. It honors a generation of people, black and white, throughout the state of South Carolina who deserve to be remembered for their unselfish commitments and sacrifices. Enjoy an immersive and entertaining virtual tour. For more information, visit www.cecilwilliams.com.
Welcome back to the show. Well, listen, you can tell we are not in the studio today. Working on some renovations, which is great. And so I just want to say thank you to my assistant producers and to all of our guests that have been so helpful. And of course, you viewers for always tuning into the show. So without further ado, guess what? Poetic Angel is here and she's got a special poem for us. So without further ado, let me introduce you to Poetic Angel Howell.
Tammy,
Hey, Angel, how are you?
I am doing well. How are you?
I'm doing well. Well, I always like to get right to the point, but before we do that, I want you to kind of tell us about your father and what describes your father. What is the characteristic that you will describe him? How you will describe him?
My dad was dynamic. My dad, if he was alive today, I think he would be 87, 88. He died 10 years ago. I'm the baby of 10 kids, so he was my father, but I got that advantage of having the older wisdom, so he was like my grandfather as well. Um, he was a civil rights activist. He worked with Mr. Fred Moore, an attorney out of Charleston, South Carolina,
Hmm.
and Mrs. Victoria DeLee, who lived in Ridgeville. She has also transitioned.
Wow, wow. And so, what made him special to you?
What made him special to me? He loved his children. He was very protective of his daughters, something I did not understand when I was younger. But
Hmm.
as an adult, I understand now that what I thought was being strict was actually the love of protection that he had for his children.
Yeah.
And so, but some of the things that I remember, even though with us having the huge age gap, he used to love playing trivia with me, asking brain teasing questions and things like that. I was definitely a daddy's girl. Wherever my dad went, I traveled right along with him.
Yeah.
Um, but as I got older and got interested in the male and us being had that age differential, we kind of butt
Hmm.
heads a little bit, but we came back together, and he ended up dying with Alzheimer's.
Mm. What was the biggest lesson that you learned from your father?
biggest lesson, that they would be trials, but that we could always overcome them.
Yeah, yeah. I was a daddy girl too, so I know exactly what you're talking about. Exactly. So, Angel, you brought us a beautiful poem. I know all of your poems are beautiful, but I asked you to kind of bring to full circle because this is the end of our Fearless Father series, and so I wanted you to share a poem with us.
Okay. This poem is actually spiritual father, so it's more geared towards pastors. However, my father was also a minister, so I chose this poem for that reason. Spiritual Father, to our Father in heaven, you taught us to pray as we begin each morning and end each day. You guide us as the Holy Spirit gives direction, as you preach words of wisdom for our soul's protection. A father is what we know you to be, leading us to God as a shepherd leads his sheep. Though sometimes we may wander from the pastor, we know you will call us back because God has ordained you as our pastor.
Wow, Angel, that was beautiful.
Thank you.
I tell you what, I am so moved by your poem. So we talked about it. So there's a book coming, okay? Right?
There will be. I don't have a date yet, but it's coming.
That's right. That's right. That's right. Well, Angel, listen, I know I don't want to hold you. I just continue to pray for you as you get your strength back and your health, and all. And just want to say thank you so much for being on
And
the
I thank
show.
and thank you so much, Tammy and the Tammy Show.
That's right. Give Zoe and Zion, and the hubby, tell them all I said hello.
Okay, I will.
Okay, and we just beautiful
All
poem,
right.
Angel.
Thank
Mr.
you.
Gas. Okay,
Thank
bye,
you.
Angel. Thank you.
Bye bye.
Bye
You're
bye.
welcome.
All right, folks, you heard it right here. Mr. Gas, thanks so much for reaching out, and of course, Connie, thank you as well for letting Angel know about her poem and supporting her um, through her journey with writing poems. As I say, she's the poet laureate on the Tammy Show. Now, she had been named that in the state, but I'm calling her that for the Tammy Show. Thank you so much, Angel. All right, well, listen. We've got a great guest. I mean, when he speaks, it's like, what did I say? You know, I used to say E.F. Hutton when E.F. Hutton speaks. Okay. Well, this gentleman, when he speaks, guess what? You're going to be listening. He is the president of King Consulting Group. He's also executive director of Range for Hope Foundation. He's an author. He's an Army veteran. He's a devoted husband, a dedicated father, a loving brother, and everybody loves him. So without further ado, come on out, Mr. Alvin King.
Hey, how's it going, Tammy?
All right, man. How are you?
I'm doing well. How about yourself?
I'm doing well. Well, listen, I am so glad that you were able to join the show with us, and just want to say thank you because I know your journey recently, and so I want to thank you for taking the time to be here.
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. So Alvin, let's talk. Kind of tell the people about who Alvin King is. I got you all hyped up now.
I see that. I don't know if I was waiting for that guy to come out. I just
you
was like,
you are
wow.
you are it,
I'll
Tag.
get,
You're
I
it.
was, I was gonna get my popcorn and be like, oh wow, let me see what this guy got going on.
Tell us about Alvin
Um,
King.
so I'm originally from Brooklyn, New York. I was born and raised in Brooklyn. After school, I had some trials and tribulations as a young man. I played a lot of sports, went into college playing sports, and made some grown up decisions, and had my, as they say, my then girlfriend, now wife. I got there wasn't any social media, or it wasn't cell phones back then, so I got an actual call, a phone call on an actual rotary phone to say that, hey, I'm late, and I had no idea what she was late for, and so I found out I was going to be a dad, and I had to start making some adult decisions at a very young age. And so I wound up getting a job, because I was on this compressed timeline of figuring out what I needed to do as a college student who lived in a dorm with $6-7 in my pocket. I needed to become a person who was ready to receive a family very shortly. And so I was blessed by a family friend to get a job, and worked and actually was able to secure an apartment and to furnish the apartment. And as you started to grow in this journey through these couple of months, just understanding, I saw a guy about 5-6 months ago with one of my favorite t-shirts on. He said, it said, "The worst hood I ever lived in, adulthood." And so it was never more evident than, those 8 months prior to my daughter being born, that, it was not all, we run and rush to be an adult. And when it happens, sometimes we're not ready for it. Most times we're not ready for it. And so, we had our daughter, and as we were going through being a young couple, it was just struggle in the greater New York City area. And finally, there was an ultimatum put down to say, I don't want to raise my family here in New York, which was ironic because we both grew up in New York. So it was all God's timing. I had a family member who was dating somebody in the Army, and he had a friend who was a recruiter in the Army. And he was going to visit him that day. And he was like, "Hey, come tag along." And so I went and met him, and he sat me down, and I just took the practice ASVAB, and they were BSing for a while. And, I gave him the test, and, this how long ago it was. He put the Scantron on top of it. And, he looked at it, looked at me, looked at me, he said, "You're not leaving here until you sign up." He said, "I've been in this office over 2 years and no one's got all 50 questions right."
Wow.
And so, that was it. And as they say, the rest was history. I wound up joining the Army, and I did 20 years in the Army. Over 20 years, I had an opportunity to go a lot of places, be stationed a lot of different places. I'd actually have multiple deployments to Afghanistan, multiple deployments to Iraq, to Bosnia, to Africa, to Jordan, Kuwait, Turkey, and a host of other places. I've just had an opportunity to travel the world and meet different people and where they were. And so I was just, blessed in that capacity. And during that time, our family grew. I had not only my daughter, but then we had another son. And then when our dad passed away, I took on my younger brother. And so we had 3 kids throughout our 20 years of military service. And when I retired from the Army, I wrote a book. And, I thought I wanted to go out and do all these great and glorious things. I started a leadership consultant business and started going from organization to organization, kind of teaching people different leadership principles based on me being a senior leader in the Army. I just wanted to, the Army to me, or the military in general, has a great leadership development program, whereas you have to start at the bottom and make your way to the top. Mm-hmm. So everything is earned, not given. In contrast, in the civilian sector, there's something called want ads, and you could say now hiring senior leader. So there's, that was always my running joke in the Army. Mm-hmm. There's no want ad, so we can't hire senior leaders. We have to develop them. And so,
right.
And through that, I then transitioned into the philanthropic world, and started my own foundation. And the foundation mission is to Range for Hope is to provide access to golf as a therapy for veterans and their dependents.
Wow, that's great. I mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off.
Oh, you did.
Just to hear you talk about range for hope. And we're going to talk about that during the next segment. But to hear what you went through, and I want to go back to being a father, because when you found out, as you said, you had to kind of make a shift. So what was your thought process during that time? I mean, did you automatically say, go into gear and say, okay, I've got to do something? Or did you have to take time to get to that point?
Oh no, it was automatically flipped that switch because just based on my parents, although my parents separated when I was very young, my dad was always in my life. And, then my dad remarried and, I had a stepmother and then my mom remarried. So I had a stepfather. So I had four parents, growing up and,
Right.
four big sides, each side of the family was huge.
Mm-hmm.
So it was just a lot of family, a lot of great role models, a lot of mentors that kind of imparted a lot of wisdom into me. So yeah, it was kind of instantly because I knew the reality of what was about to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I knew, but I didn't understand the reality of what was about to happen. And
Right.
so I just needed to get out in front of it as best as I could based on that's how my mind worked, more analytical minded. And so I just wanted to make sure that I could set up, myself and my family for as much success as possible in a
Wow.
short amount of time.
Wow. I mean, for you to say that as a young man, I'm hoping that other young people that may be looking or later will be watching the show really pick up from what you said is that you stepped in, you that mode was automatic, that you went into survival mode, as I'm going to call it, automatically. And a lot of people don't do that, especially at a young age, because they're thinking about what about me? But you thought about your wife and your child that's on the way. And I have to commend you for that. So I want to talk to you about your children, because one of the things about being a fearless father is that we look at our fathers as that hero, you know. And what are some of the favorite things that you do with with your children and your family?
Well, children's a real loose term with my kids now because
Yeah, because they're grown, right?
my daughter is 25 now and my
Right,
youngest son is 22, but there will always be my children.
right, correct.
But I think that I think ironically now we have more of a more of a fluid relationship. We're more because of their adulthood and we can kind of talk more. And so there was obviously during my 20 years of service, there was a lot of time I was gone. I was deployed for years at a time. And so I missed out on a lot of birthdays and Christmases and holidays and vacations. And, so they had tons of memories without me, tons of pictures without me.
Hmm.
And so they can easily, go back to a memory and say, hey, you remember when we did this? And I was like, no, not particularly.
Yeah.
So, which is fine because that happens in the military life.
Right.
But I think what I enjoyed um, was watching them grow. I think, I have, we talked about the book, I allude to the book, but within the book, I talk about kind of, the tree analogy where there's just, a tree grows on its own,
Hmm.
planted in good soil. If it's toiled and nurtured and fed and water and sun, the tree grows unimpeded because there's nothing in its way. And so a lot of times parents like to inject themselves into that tree. Maybe they put up a fence or maybe they put up a
Hmm.
shade, because they don't want the tree to get too much sun. And so we can stunt our children's growth. And so I think what I always enjoyed and appreciated was allowing them to have that liberty to kind of learn and to develop on their own and to kind of explore and ask questions. And
Mm.
so, although as the authoritarian, sometimes that those questions were met with harsh responses.
Of course, of course.
But at the same point, they had to grow, ask and find out and grow in that capacity.
Right. And what were some of the lessons that you taught your now adult children?
I think the biggest one, being one generation removed from growing up in the city is, there's so much more in life than is in front of you. And so don't allow there to be any limits to your goals, to your aspirations, because the as they say, the sky is the limits. But you should always continue to push yourself. And so our kids did very well for themselves in school, and now as they transition into their um, working, it's just, I think the biggest thing that I could say that I encourage them to do is kind of just definitely don't limit yourself. That was always a kind of a conversation we would always talk about.
Hmm. Hmm. And as we're talking about the lessons that you taught your children, what were some of the lessons that you learned from your parents?
Both were strict, different, and but the same. My mom was the youngest of 11, and my dad was the oldest male of six, and so they both grew up in the 50s in New York during a hard time. And so they, there was a more of a grit to their lessons. There was always I mean, I don't think, well, yeah, well, my mom finished her GED and then went on to community college years later.
Wow.
Um, and same with my dad. My dad finished his GED and went on and got some college, but not much. So, obviously, as the oldest male son, they were always like, hey, you know, school,
Edu-
school, 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 school,
Education.
education. They
Hmm.
knew that, they both worked.
Uh-oh, froze. Okay. So Alvin, your camera froze, and so we're going to give it a minute to see if he comes back up. So Alvin, if you can hear us, um, we're going to we're going to take a commercial break, and then we'll be right back.
The Curry Insurance Agency has served the community for over 30 years with hundreds of trained representatives to assist you in selecting health plans. Curry Insurance Agency is the largest marketing insurance group in the state of South Carolina for Medicare Advantage and represents all major health carriers. Curry's motto is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Call the Curry Agency today at 803-536-0889.
All right, Alvin, you're back. We just took a commercial
Technical
break.
difficulties.
That's right, technical difficulties, and we have to know how to shift. And
Boom.
so we just took that commercial break, and I'm glad you're back with us. As you were talking about the lesson that you learned, and what I hear you saying is that they were big on education, as my parents were as well. But one of the things that I'm seeing the correlation between what your parents taught you and what you taught your children is there are no limitations to what you can do. As you talked about your mother, going to community college late in life, and your father as well getting his GED, and all of those things. That just shows me that they would like sky's the limit. You do what you do. You keep doing it, and so that's important. As a father, one of the things that I wanted to ask you, because it just came to mind, is did you take your family with you to any of your deployments, your assignments?
Well, I mean, they were with me in every assignment, but they never deployed. I mean, they never went overseas with me.
Oh, okay, I got you. I
Yeah.
got
So, I mean, we lived in North Carolina, Georgia, South
you.
Carolina,
Hmm.
Texas, but they never. So they traveled the United States a lot, but
States,
they
right?
didn't
Didn't go.
go over to. Now it's a war, so there was no bring your family
Yeah,
to
no.
war.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. And I know that sometimes they go to Germany or something like that.
Yeah, no, I didn't have
Um,
the opportunity to have any overseas assignments outside of
Abroad.
deployments. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, we thank you for your service. That's the one thing that I want to say. Thank
Well,
you for
thank
your
you.
service. You know, as what would you say your children? How would your children describe you? You think right now?
Old, that's
Come
that's
on,
that's the first, the first thing that they say is, man, you old. But
no.
it's all in love. Um, they would also say, just like you alluded to earlier, is, that I'm verbose, that I don't mind talking. So they definitely would say that I don't have any issue talking based on what I do on a regular basis.
Right, right.
So they've learned to, I think, appreciate it now a little bit more, where obviously when they were younger, it was not as cool, and they didn't want to listen as long as they do now.
Yeah. So you have those family times now where you all sit around or talk on the phone or text, because I have a 27-year-old, so I know what that's like.
Oh yeah. The well, I mean, so I get a minute here to brag on my kids. My daughter, who, I dropped out of college for, is now a lawyer. She's a Temple Law grad, and she's a lawyer in Philadelphia. And and then our youngest son, yes, thank you. And then our youngest son just graduated in May from Yale, and so he's applying to medical school as we speak this month. And so, with that being said, my children have far exceeded my educational prowess, by far,
Yes.
miles and miles ahead of me. And
Right.
so, I'm elated with that. But it's great to see them in their own journey,
Hmm.
and not only in their own journey, but really comfortable in their own journey. Like, they are very efficient in their approach to how they're doing things. And now when they ask questions, it's, there's some adult questions in there. It's like, hey dad, do I do this, or the car is making this kind of noise, should I take a hit, should I do this, and well, who's this FICA, and why are they taking all this money out of my check? And so there's, it's there's these things that, you get to
Right.
laugh and joke about, but they're growing, and they're becoming
Mhm.
adults, and it's,
Right.
it's a fun time to kind of see that, and to
Right.
just kind of laugh and giggle when they call and they're just so frustrated about, oh,
Oh,
I
yes.
can't get off of work for this, and I can't do,
Yeah.
and it's just all this struggle, and you're like, it's gonna be okay.
Exactly. You reminded me when you said your children a lawyer and becoming a doctor. So now you've done it. I mean, lawyer, doctor. A lot of people would say that's the ultimate. But the main thing about it is that they have exceeded, like you said, what you have done. And I think that's our reason for parenting. Angel says to you, congratulations, that's amazing. And it speaks volumes about us as parents. If our children make six figures at 27, 28, 29 years old, then we did something. If they're doing that and living their life with integrity, then we have done something. So congratulations to you again, and congratulations to the graduate from Yale. that's
Yes,
that's
thank you,
fantastic.
appreciate it.
How is your brother doing?
So my brother is, our bonus child. We took him in when actually our dad had passed away. The story that's in the book is I was getting ready to go to Bosnia, and our wife was 9 months pregnant with our son. And so my commander, we were leaving on Wednesday, and we came in on Monday, and he saw how pregnant my wife was. He said, "Hey, you can't go nowhere. She's about to go." I said, "I've been trying to tell you this." So he let me stay behind, and so I waved everybody on the airfield on Wednesday. Thursday, I got a phone call from a doctor, and basically was telling me that, I was to do not resuscitate for my dad, and that I needed to come sign some papers. And I had just spoken to him the weekend prior, but he had a massive stroke and he was now on life support within that week. And so I had to go down and kind of deal with that, and, wound up taking him off life support. And while I was down there, my wife had our son. So my dad passed on the 27th and our son was born on the 30th. So, and when I came back, I had my brother who was 9 at the time. And so, I came home and I was home for about 4 more days. And then I had to get on the plane to get to Bosnia. And so I left a 9-year-old, a 4-year-old, and a newborn, high five, and I'll see you in 8 months.
Wow.
And so, wow is right, so as I tell people, I'm lucky to be kept around because there's been plenty of opportunity to be unkept.
Oh, wow.
But my brother, getting back to him,
yes.
He's doing really, really well. He's actually in the Air Force himself now.
Good.
He's 11 years in, and he is married, and he actually has started his own family. And he just this past month had his second child. So they have a 1-year-old daughter, and he has a newborn son.
All right.
So
yeah,
the family is growing.
The family is going. Congratulations. Well, that having said that, we want to say hello to your wife as well, because I know what it's like. I've had a few Army friends, and of course, my brother is retired as well in the Army. But those wives that stay home and take care of the kids and all of that, salute to them as well, because without them, you wouldn't be able to do what you do to save our country and to really protect our country. And so that's commendable. Yeah. So tell her I said hello, Mrs. King. Yeah. All right. So listen, Alvin, you're going to stick around with me a little bit, and we're going to talk about King Consulting Group. We're also going to talk about Range for Hope, and we're going to talk about the book, Purpose Fulfilled. And so I want you to just stay right there, get some water. Okay.
Sounds good.
All right. And we're coming right back. We're going to take a break, everybody. We'll be right back.
The Cecil Williams South Carolina Civil Rights Museum is the Palmetto State's first and only museum. It honors a generation of people, black and white, throughout the state of South Carolina who deserve to be remembered for their unselfish commitments and sacrifices. Enjoy an immersive and entertaining virtual tour. For more information, visit www.cecilwilliams.com. The Curry Insurance Agency has served the community for over 30 years with hundreds of trained representatives to assist you in selecting health plans. Curry Insurance Agency is the largest marketing insurance group in the state of South Carolina for Medicare Advantage and represents all major health carriers. Curry's motto is people don't care how much you know until they know how much you care. Call the Curry Agency today at 803-536-0889.
Welcome back to the show. If you're just joining us, we've been talking with Alvin King. Alvin King is an author. He's the president of King Consulting Group and also the executive director of Range for Hope Foundation. And so we've been talking to him about being a fearless father. But we're going to now start talking about King Consulting Group. And I want you to kind of share with us, because I met you at a leadership conference, and you were the headliner. Of course, you weren't singing, but you were the main speaker, the keynote speaker. And so, Alvin, again, thank you for being on the show. And again, my prayers to you as, and all. And I really want to thank you for being on the show. So talk about King Consulting Group.
So I started a consulting group when I retired from the Army, wrote a book, and decided to go out and start doing some speaking events. And so I wanted to, I guess, kind of share the knowledge that I'd acquired over the past 20 years. I'd done a lot of different consulting in the Army. at various levels in other countries with other foreign dignitaries. So just being able to bring a variety of my, I guess, dynamic leadership style to the civilian sector was kind of something that was intriguing to me, because I noticed just as I was transitioning that there was such a vast difference in the way that people outside of the military looked at leadership development. And so we talked about in the previous segment that there's no want ads in the military. So I think that was huge for me, because the reality is you're not looking to hire anybody. You have to develop people. And so we go back to that leadership development. How do you learn to develop leadership within your organization at any level, whether it be, I was speaking to small own businesses at maybe realtors or smaller banks. And, I spoke to some bigger companies and some bigger corporations. And, the theme and the models were always the same, is that, how do you invest back into your people? Because, I always think back to a quote that one of the quotes I had hanging up in my office was, when I was in the Army, is, it's basically a conversation. And the conversation goes, if, somebody asks, what if we invest in Jones and Jones leaves? And the response is, what if we don't and he stays? So the reality is would you, in leadership development, would you rather invest in somebody and get the 3, 6, 9 months, a year out of that person and all the skills that they have, and then they move on to something bigger and better? Or would you rather not invest in them and them always underachieve and have them for 3, 5, 6, 10, 15 years? Mm-hmm. And so always underachieving. Mm-hmm. So there's different ways to look at that. And that was kind of the things that I kind of brought as I was going out teaching different leadership development workshops, and also being a keynote speaker. So just being a motivational speaker, getting out and talking and passing on lessons learned through a variety of different stories and anecdotes. So people really generally connect with those things, because you can find, even though you haven't had that opportunity yourself to go to Iraq or to Afghanistan or to Africa, but you've worked with people in different or difficult situations, and you've learned to adapt and overcome. And so just putting a different twist or a different spin and bringing, maybe exposing people to a different perspective was kind of the huge goal for me.
Mm-hmm. And would you say, and I'm going to ask this question, when you are really speaking with people and teaching them about developing leaders, what's the one common theme that you want them to take away, to glean from what you are speaking on when it comes to leadership?
Well, I think I always open up with what is leadership, right? And because everybody has these different themes associated with what a leader is, who a leader looks like, what are their attributes. And so as we transition, begin to talk about the book a little, I try to simplify it as best as I can. And I talk about the ABCs of leadership. And so the reality is, for me, keeping everything simple was always a successful means for me, because I just wasn't a very big overthinker. And,
Mm-hmm.
So I could simplify things. It helped me out a lot. And so getting people to kind of find these things, these triggers that they can fall back to and say, hey, like, what are your ABCs of leadership? What are the leadership attributes that you may want? And they may change, don't get
Mm-hmm.
tied to them. So for example, my attitude, attitude is, a great A word, and everybody's like attitude. And, somebody might say action may be my leadership word, or, apathy, or, whatever it may be. And as you go through, so now you've picked this word and this is kind of where I'm at. But the one thing that I really, really emphasized on was always going back and readdressing. So don't get caught up in the reality of like attitude, behavior, confidence, discipline, and energy. Let's just say those are my top five: ABC,
Right.
A to E, right?
Uh-huh.
And so now I've really worked on those. I'm really bonding with those, and then there's an opportunity maybe to remove a bias. And so now I'm, as opposed to being belief might not be my B word, bias might be my B word, and like now I want to make sure that I'm non-biased to things that are in my purview. So I mean, it's just little things like that. I think being willing to adapt is huge. And because as well as I do, as you get older, a common phrase that we like to use is, well, I've been doing it that way for
Oh,
this,
yes.
or this is how we
Yes. Yes.
always do it. This is
Always.
this and so a lot of people overlook the new. And so I was always learning. Through my 20 years in the Army, I learned so much in my latter time in the military from people who were a year into the military. For example, even like when you say, thank you for your service, that is the most awkward thing for a military member, especially because it comes like at the most awkward time. You're walking, somebody holds the door for you in your uniform, like, hey, thank you for your service. And like, thank you. And you don't know the proper response. And so one day we were out and I forgot what we were doing. And I told that story to one of my junior soldiers. And this young man had only been in the Army less than a year. He said, that's easy. All you have to do is say, thank you for your support. And I was like, where have you been for the past 20 years?
Exactly.
Because he said that so like when he said it,
Like it's just
it was just
boom.
so boom. I was like,
Yeah.
wow. And so now, my easy response is always, oh,
Yes.
no, thank you for your
Thank you for
support.
your support.
Because this 19-year-old man who, I was literally in the Army almost 19 years at that point. And, so he was alive as long as I've been in the Army. And,
Wow.
he just dropped that gem on me. So,
Yeah. Yeah.
we're always learning. Just,
That's
I'm
right.
sure you are always learning, and every day, and you see things and you're like, wow, I just,
Yeah.
get out your pen and pad and
That's
jot
it.
it down, get out your note app or whatever.
That's it.
We always have to challenge ourselves to always be learning.
And one of the things that comes to mind as we're talking about this and adapting, how important is it for leaders to reinvent themselves, to when they and it's part of adaptation, but it's also reinventing. For instance, having a thought of, well, I've been doing this, as you said, this way, but now I'm looking at taking that another turn to do it another way. So almost like you're reinventing what your thought pattern is and what your visions are. And how important is that in leadership?
Oh, it's tremendous. I think, I think the biggest thing I could tie that to is feedback. How many people ask for feedback in, as a leader? So in the military, we would always do assessments, which people would hate because they were like, oh, we got to fill out another leadership
Right, right,
assessment.
right.
And yes, everything's great. And then, there'd be the disgruntled people who would, let it all out. And I can't believe so-and-so is doing this and so-and-so. And so you have to find the happy medium of that, where you have to have honest and frank feedback to kind of grow and develop. And so you as a leader should have that time to engage and interact with your coworkers as well as the people who you are leading, and kind of get that feedback. What am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? What can we do better as a team? How can we operate better? What are our goals, and so on and so forth.
Yeah, and that's so important. Thank you, Miss Darlene. She says always be open to
Absolutely.
learning from others, no matter their age. God will use whom He chooses, and that's so right. That is so right. So Alvin, we don't have a whole lot of time left, so I want to talk to you about the book, Purpose Fulfilling. Talk about your book, as you alluded to earlier in the other segment, about how fulfilling it is to live out your purpose and just kind of give us a little synopsis.
Okay, so Purpose Fulfilled, A Guide to a Life Well Lived. That was a book I wrote as I was retiring. And so the whole thought behind it was just in the title itself was to be a guide. So I went back and forth struggling with the name, especially with my editor. They hated it because it was almost, they're like, you're too young to have a book title like this. Purpose Fulfilled, A Guide to a Life Well Lived alludes to somebody who has done so much. And I'm like, well, I have done so much in such a short span of time. But, the reality was I wasn't saying that I was done. I was just saying that at that moment, my purpose had been fulfilled. And, I'm just giving you a guide to the life that I have lived well thus far. And so the goal was to kind of put down some of my lessons learned. It wasn't necessarily the war story book that everybody was hoping for.
Right.
For somebody like me who had served for so long and gone on so many deployments. But it was more just a guide to some principles, some attributes, some things that I saw, some lessons learned. And so I wanted to be able to give back. And it kind of really came from a speaking event. And so I'd been invited to speak at a church in Rock Hill, South Carolina. And I drove up there and, spoke. And after I finished speaking, the pastor came up and said, Mr. King will be in the vestibule if anybody wants to speak to him after service. So I went out in the back, stood by the door so I could kind of just shake people's hand as they walked out. And the first couple walked up and they just started talking. And we're talking probably about 3-5 minutes. And I noticed nobody had passed him. And I was like, what's going on? And so I kind of just leaned over and looked behind them, and everybody was lined up and snaking back into the sanctuary. And, everybody stood there waiting to talk to me. So I stood for about another hour or so.
Wow.
And, of course, everybody comes up and like, hey, my brother serves in the Air Force. And do you know Bill? And I'm like, I really don't know Bill.
I know.
And so, it's this funny thing that people always attribute to military service. And although it is a small, it's a small world, but we don't know everybody. But it was great. And so, people always, so it'd been about 3 or 4 speaking events in a row where people had stopped and were like, hey, can I get your notes? Hey, can I, just ask you some questions? And so that was kind of what spawned the book, where I was like, maybe I should just write some of these things out. And, this way I can have almost like an extended business card. I could have some like a pamphlet, because it was really like I thought about writing just like some pamphlets to kind of give out. And I was like, well, maybe it'll be a small thing. And then I wanted to keep it small and palatable. So it's under 100 pages and people can, get through that without, doing too much. And I always joke because it's a thin book. So I tell people it's just the right size. That you got that table that's a little wobbly. You can slide it right under. So keep it up.
Yeah,
so,
that's right. That's right. Well, we have the cover, and I'd like people to see that. If you all would show that cover, because this is an important book. I enjoyed reading it to the point that I gave it to one of my mentees to read, and she's read it, and I haven't gotten it back yet. I guess I'm gonna have to go back to Charleston to get it from her.
That's right,
because it has my name in it. But but this, certainly it is 100 pages, a very nice read, easy read. But it's packed with so much information that will help someone along their journey as they are trying to pinpoint what their purpose is and to really know how to be fulfilling in what you're doing. And so I want to thank you for your book as well. One of the things that I wanted to ask you about, and I'm going to switch because our time is running out, is about the Range for Hope. How can the community help the Range for Hope Foundation?
There's a lot. That's a loaded question. So Range for Hope was a brainchild of mine. I actually went through a program called PGA Hope, which is a program through the PGA that is helping our patriots everywhere. And so, phenomenal program. It's for disabled and combat vets. And just like we had talked about in the last segment, there's more to me as a veteran than just me. There's the team that comes along with me. And so a lot of times that other side of the equation gets left out. And so we wanted to start something where not only the veteran can have programs and resources, but the family members and the dependents can as well. So Range for Hope does free golf lessons for veterans, as well as active duty and their families. And I have we host 2 charity golf tournaments every year to kind of help offset the cost of these programs. So we do a 6-month weekly program. So there's twice a week, starting in May, ending the week of Veterans Day in November. We go twice a week, and we just service and provide these resources and programs to the people who show up. They sign up. You can sign up online, or you can sign up at the golf course or at the driving range. We have 2 locations in the greater Columbia area. We're downtown Columbia at the Clyburn Center, at the James Clyburn Golf Center, and we're also in Blythewood, which is at Cobblestone Park Golf Course.
Right.
And so we're looking to expand. There's some other places that I've been talking to to kind of grow this program out. And this year in 2022, we have added a new flavor, a new branch to our Range for Hope, which is adaptive golf. And so last year I was introduced to adaptive golf. And if you're unfamiliar, adaptive golf is the umbrella that golfers with any rated disability fall under. And so it's not only veterans or our military family, but anybody who has a rated disability can come out to our programs and sign up to get free golf lessons. And so through this new journey, I've gone out and done some fundraising, and I was able to buy not 1, but 2 adaptive golf carts. And so one was $30,000 and the other one was about $13,000. And these golf carts can help people. Like the $30,000 one is amazing. It's for people that are completely quadriplegic or have no use of their lower extremity. And they strap all the way in, and then this machine will stand you up, and you can stand in a golfing position, and you can swing a golf club, and then you will sit back down, and you can drive all around the golf course in this machine. And so it's phenomenal. Like I just so happened to meet some people who were doing that and went out and helped them. And, it was just amazing because there was nothing like that in the greater Columbia area. There's a great program down in Somerville. There's a great program in Greenville, in Paris Island, out in Myrtle Beach, in the Augusta-Aiken area. There were so many things going on around us in the state of South Carolina. But in the Midlands and in Columbia area, there wasn't. And so we're excited to kind of launch that this year and to kind of spearhead that program. And we've connected with the VA there locally at the Doran VA, and they're excited to kind of really help bring adaptive sports to not only the veteran community and the dependents, but also to the outside community, and so connecting with a lot of physical therapists, with occupational therapists, we're just excited to kind of bring this new adventure because, we preach, especially nowadays, these 3 words, and I'm sure you hear them all the time: diversity, equity, and inclusion.
And inclusion, yes.
And so we want to make sure we have an inclusive program, and we're providing equitable resources to everybody and anybody. And my main goal is to continue to keep this free to the participant. And so when you ask how can you help, we obviously are a 501c3, so we run 100% on donations and charity. And so that's why I do the 2 charitable golf tournaments. We're also looking to do some other things and get creative with our fundraising, but we're growing slowly. We're a couple years old, and we're excited to just continue to serve our community and give back. It started out as just giving back to veterans and their families, and now this year adding the adaptive golf community has been, a whole new eye-opening experience, and we just look forward to growing more. It's been so much so that all the areas that I mentioned, the Greenville, Spartanburg area, the Somerville Myrtle
area.
Beach, Augusta, Aiken, and somewhere else I always forget, but we're all coming together as a one, and we're going to host the first ever all adaptive golf tournament in Columbia at Cobblestone Park. And so in September, the last weekend of September, is going to be a 3-day golf tournament that we're hosting, and all these different groups are going to bring up people who go through their program in those areas to our golf course. And this is going to be the first annual, and we look forward to doing it year after year and bringing up more and more people. So we're excited to partner with the golf course at Cobblestone because they're just phenomenal. They always help us out. We're excited to partner with all the groups that are coming up from Greenville, Somerville, Myrtle Beach, Augusta, Aiken, Paris Island. And, it's just exciting to see how it continues to grow. So, you're just walking in the right path.
That's right.
Living your purpose. And so, that is the best part about all of this, is just that affirmation that, or I should say that confirmation of your affirmation. And so it's exciting.
Wow, you are doing it. And so we have the website. I want to make sure that is correct. It's rangeforhope.org. And so if you want to give a donation, I want folks to know that if they're listening right now, you can go to rangeforhope.org and give a donation. Do what's right. I always say, bless somebody else. And certainly when you bless somebody else, you also get blessed in return. And one thing, the last thing that I'm going to ask you, and I'm sorry we're running out of time, but I want you to come back on because I want you to talk about the adaptive golf and the golf tournament that you're going to have in September. And so we'll see you back in September. We're going to make sure we get that on the books in August, hopefully, so that we can do that or get your commercial. We'll put it on to really help out for the Range of Hope. And it'll go on my website as well, and all as we do what we do here on the Tammy Show. So you told me what's next for the Range of Hope. What are 3 words that describe you?
3 words that describe me. That's a solid question, Tammy.
Come on now. Listen, not you gonna be silent.
That's it. Silent. I guess that'd be one. Soft, silent, and I think outspoken. I think that would be one. I think serving or servant. That would be 2 for sure. And humble. I try to remain humble because, as you know, as you get quote unquote success, people think that you have made it and you've done this or you've done that. And that's not what I'm here for. I'm just here to serve and to give back, and just through blessings and being a vessel. It's fortunate that it looks better than what it is sometimes. You see what I'm saying?
I got you.
And so that's the funny part about all this. So I'm just honestly humbled by a lot of this, because it's not something as a young child I would have never imagined being here.
Yeah.
And I appreciate this.
And hey, listen, God has a purpose for all of us, and definitely you are fulfilling the purposes that God has for you. And the more you do that, the more you give. The more you get, He gives you more. So that's all I can say.
Right.
If you're walking in the light of God, He's going to continue to give that to you, so that you can continue to be a blessing to others. And so, Alvin, listen, we've run out of time, but I want to thank you so much for being on the show. I've enjoyed talking with you.
I've enjoyed talking with you as well. I appreciate you having me.
Thank you so much. You feel better, okay?
I will. Thank you.
All right. All right. Listen, I'm going to text you later, and we'll be talking with you again to talk about the Cobblestone Golf Club and all that you're doing with adaptive golf. All right.
Awesome. Thank you, Tammy. Have a great
Thank
night.
you so much, Alvin. Take care of yourself.
All right.
All right.
Bye.
Bye bye. All right. So that was Alvin King and, of course, Angel Howell. I want to thank them both for being on the show. You can reach Mr. Alvin King by going to rangeforhope.org. All of his information will be there as well. And I hope that you will give a donation, because what he's doing is really worthy. And you'll be a blessing to others. So I just want to say thank you, folks. This is Fearless Fathers. Thank you to all of my viewers. Thank you to my producers, Willie, Tiana, Felicia, as always. Angel, thank you for always providing us with some beautiful poems. And again, folks, I just want to say I'm so grateful. Listen, I had a fearless father, and I want to show his picture right quick before we sign off. His name is, if we have it, did we get it? Yes. His name is Dr. Turner M. McCautry. This was my father, MD. And I can tell you, as most of you know, I'm adopted from birth, and they took me in unconditionally and raised me. And I am so grateful, because yes, I am a daddy's girl. I always will be a daddy's girl. He's no longer with us, but thank you, Dad, for all that you did. Again, listen, I just want to remind you that we're on the Tammy Show on YouTube. And I would love for you just to hit that subscribe button. That's all you have to do, right, Willie? Hit the subscribe button. And Willie, congratulations to you on your thousands and thousands of YouTube subscribers. And you can check him out as a Positive King. I mean, wonderful, wonderful. He went viral, and listen, he's got over almost 200,000 hits, I know. But he's got 10,000 plus viewers. Okay, subscribers. I think I've got it right, Willie. But congratulations to you, as we found out all of this past week. Tiana, congratulations to you for all you're doing, and Felicia, love you all so much. Want to thank Alicia. Met with her, and she's been with me from the very beginning. And I want to thank her so much for all that she's doing, and my daughter, Catherine. They're producers as well. Let us continue to be a blessing to somebody today and every day. Remember, it's about what we do for others. And keep God first. Believe in yourself. And I'm going to tell you that because I am a Christian. And so I want you to believe in yourself and know that God is with you. Until the next time, I want you to take care of yourself. Bye-bye.